I run into so many who are knee deep into world building, yet have little to nothing to show or offer with their actual writing. And when they do show stuff, well, what I often see has led me to conclude that, when starting out or stuck, prioritizing world building is a mistake. A fun mistake, but a mistake. The thing is, if you're making a story, world building is a subordinate to story. As the 8 crafts of storytelling best put, it isn't relevant to the story's outline, and the details can be changed at any time. Its purpose is to enrich the story. It's just a setting. The setting is important. There are all kinds of wonderful things that having setting down can do, but it isn't the highest in the hierarchy of priorities. As the 24 laws of storytelling best sum up, there's a reason why Lord of the Ring and The Hobbit were successful, while only diehards care about the Silmarillion. I'm willing to bet you those diehards wouldn't be there if the Silmarillion was all that ever existed. I'm not saying don't world build ever. I'm not actually against world building itself. It can create a sense of wonder and add beauty to works. I'm against it as a starting point for those who wish to make stories. I'm against free design. When I see the freedom it offers, I think back to a certain lesson from Bruce Lee, Fighting Spirit. To wander in a circle with no circumference is not to be free, but rather to be lost. You must learn how to function in a small, well-defined circle until made larger a little at a time until it seemingly has no edges. If you prioritize world building, it's easy to procrastinate on making the actual story or get lost in meaningless detail. It's also less efficient because, frankly, nobody inherently cares about constructed worlds. They're just facts, and facts by themselves don't garner emotions. What gets people to care about these things isn't the world building itself, but other aspects of works which actually provoke emotion. In fact, there's 4 things I've identified as far more pressing: genre, character, theme, and plot. Genre is a promise about the type of emotional experience you aim to provide the audience. It also dictates what the story should be focusing on. After all, people are going to have different expectations of a mystery than they will a romance. Furthermore, genre is what attracts people to works since they're searching for a specific emotional experience. This is the reason why something can be a good work to one person and not click with another. Since this is the gateway to them caring about everything, it should be prioritized. Once you know your genre, you can figure out what character archetypes you need to focus on. After all, audience purchase works because of concepts, but they embrace them because of characters. Characters, particularly the one the audience latches onto, color the experience with the story. It's through our investment and immersion into them do we come to care about things like the world building. They are our guides into the stories, into the worlds, and our emotional compasses. In fact, I'll go as far as to say that character doesn't need world building, but world building needs character. What also needs character is the third thing I'd prioritize over world building: theme. Theme, when simplified, is your take on an element of human nature. It's important for reaching people on a level where you teach them stuff about themselves. Theme is especially important to prioritize over world building because it's a foundation for better world building. Theme decides the tone. Tone is how theme is conveyed. The tone is expressed through how graphic work is. It's expressed through the types of humor featured. It's expressed through how a story handles and portrays violence, how realistic or fanciful the world is, how impactful and successful the most malicious or darkest qualities within a story are, and all these elements inform the world building. The world building of Night City from Cyberpunk Edgerunners, for instance, wouldn't work without the story to dictate what it should be. Or, for an absurdist example, One Piece. The tone is why it can do so much with absurd locations and still be excellent world building. The last thing I'd recommend prioritizing over world building, of course, is the plot. The characters' issues and themes likewise dictate the plot, since the plot is what forces the protagonist to confront their issues or test their integrity. These events also give an idea of what should be focused on and what should be ignored. See, here's the thing about world building. It doesn't need to exist beyond what one experiences. World building is a performance. Much like how a con doesn't require a con artist to have control over everything, world building doesn't require everything to be built or known. It just needs to appear like it does. The Writing Excuse podcast mentioned this, with Brandon Sanderson himself admitting that he doesn't design worlds to the level some people think he does. He wants to get work done, after all. It's just a matter of world building enough that people think there's more there than there actually is. They call it iceberg theory. I once read an article which calls this world conjuring. based around the idea how the author uses hints and literary magic to create the illusion of a world. The 8 crafts of storytelling calls this world subtexting. I personally don't care what you call this technique, I just know that it's enabled by the plot. It's efficient and a time saver. If you think about it, it's pretty much the 80-20 rule at work. 80% of people's impressions with the world building will be based on 20% shown in the work. Why exhaust yourself when there are so many other things to address? Plus, as can be said with examples like Dark Souls, people who get invested in world building enjoy filling in the blanks themselves. Fragments encourage the audience to imagine up answers, which can lead to more entertainment with your work. At any rate, there's only so much time that can be devoted to each aspect of storytelling. So why not prioritize the stuff which is not only more meaningful, but will enable more focused world building in the long haul? Why not avoid becoming one of the many victims of world builder's disease, and focus on stuff that will turn into a member of a far smaller group, writers who have completed works to share? As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this matter. Do you think I'm right about encouraging people to prioritize storytelling over world building if they want to make novels or short stories or whatever they're making? Or do you think it's more important to tackle the story world before everything else? Give me your thoughts in the comments and let's start a dialogue. And if you enjoy exploring topics like this, subscribe to my channel. Your support encourages me to produce more content like this.